Have you ever felt powerless, stuck in a cycle where others control the outcomes of your life? What if I told you that by understanding the hidden patterns of the mind, you can influence people, sharpen your own will, and turn obstacles into opportunities? Today, we're revealing 5 psychology tricks that can transform your thinking and give you the edge others will never see coming. Most humans live under the comforting yet deceptive belief that they are free, that their actions spring forth from some innate power of self-determination. They tell themselves that they are the masters of their fate, the captains of their own ship. Yet a closer examination of the human psyche reveals a far more disturbing truth. The mind is rarely the sovereign ruler it imagines itself to be. Beneath the surface of conscious thought lies a vast machinery of impulses, desires, and fears that steer every decision, every judgment, often without the individual's awareness. From the moment we awaken to the moment we drift into sleep, our lives are dictated less by rational deliberation than by subtle, unseen forces that have long held dominion over our actions. To believe otherwise is to dwell in illusion, a pleasant but perilous mirage. The illusion of control arises from the human tendency to mistake thought for freedom, observation for autonomy. When we act, we imagine ourselves to be choosing, yet our choices are guided by invisible currents. These currents are formed by past experiences, ingrained habits, social conditioning, and the ever-present influence of other minds. One might feel that he is choosing a career path out of personal ambition, yet the desire itself may have been shaped by societal expectations, the envy of peers, or the admiration of authority figures. Each choice becomes a reaction, a response to pressures we do not fully comprehend, to motivations that remain hidden even from ourselves. To recognize this is not to succumb to pessimism, but to awaken to a more profound understanding of the self. For once the hidden determinants of action are revealed, the possibility of genuine control emerges. Understanding the mechanics of influence within one's own mind begins with meticulous observation. One must examine the desires that drive behavior, the compulsions that masquerade as volition. Anger, ambition, and longing are not mere emotions. They are forces that mold perception, shape decisions, and dictate the rhythm of life. A man who believes he acts from reason alone may find himself compelled by envy, fear, or the need for recognition. The first step toward reclaiming control is to recognize that these forces exist, that they act continuously, often invisibly, and that only by discerning them can one hope to resist or redirect them. It is through such self-awareness that a person begins to shift from being a passive vessel of external and internal pressures to a deliberate agent, capable of conscious intervention in the flow of his own life. Yet, this recognition of the illusion must extend beyond the self. Others, too, are bound by their unseen chains. People are led by desire, by expectation, by the subtle manipulations of circumstance, often unaware of the true origins of their actions. By observing this, one not only gains clarity about the limitations of personal autonomy, but also acquires insight into the dynamics of influence. Understanding the forces that drive behavior allows one to act with foresight, to anticipate reactions, and to navigate interactions with precision that appears almost prescient. Influence, therefore, is not merely the ability to act upon others, but the art of aligning one's own intentions with the understanding of the hidden motives that govern them. The illusion of control also manifests in our relationship with the external world. Many strive to command outcomes, to bend reality to their will. Yet the world responds not to desire but to the complex interplay of circumstance, chance, and the will of others. In seeking to dominate these external variables through sheer effort, people expend energy on illusions, mistaking activity for mastery. True control is found not in the illusion of domination, but in the measured, deliberate alignment of action with understanding, in the ability to act decisively at the precise moment when conditions are favorable. This requires patience, observation, and the discipline to resist the seductive pull of impulsive action, to act not out of compulsion, but from a place of calculated awareness. In the recognition of the illusion of control lies the paradoxical liberation of the mind. By understanding the limitations imposed by internal impulses and external pressures, one gains the tools to navigate them with subtlety and efficacy. The first step toward power is the acknowledgement that we are seldom as free as we imagine, that every desire carries a weight of unseen influence, and that only through rigorous self-examination and careful observation of the world can one begin to reclaim agency over the self. Human beings are endlessly ensnared by their passions, each moment swept into the currents of desire and aversion, hope and fear. They mistake engagement for mastery, intensity for strength, and immediacy for understanding. Yet true power lies not in the frantic pursuit of every impulse, but in the disciplined art of detachment, the serene ability to observe life without the blinding distortion of emotion. Strategic detachment is not the indifference of the weak. It is a calculated distance of one who understands that clarity arises not from action alone, but from careful observation. To detach oneself strategically is to separate the self from the turbulence of circumstance, to watch the tides of human behavior and the flow of events with a mind unclouded by impulsive reaction. Emotions are like hidden currents in a stormy sea. Anger, desire, envy, and fear surge within, driving action often before reason can intervene. The individual who identifies with these currents becomes their prisoner, believing that the force of the wave is a measure of his own will. Strategic detachment teaches the opposite. It allows one to step back, to perceive the full pattern of the storm, to see not merely the immediate impact of an event, but its relation to a larger network of cause and effect. By observing rather than immediately reacting, one cultivates profound clarity, the ability to anticipate outcomes and to respond with precision rather than blind force. In detachment, one discovers that power is rarely the product of unrestrained action. It is the fruit of measured, deliberate intervention, timed perfectly to achieve the maximum effect. Detachment does not imply passivity or inaction. On the contrary, it is a form of deliberate engagement, guided by reason rather than impulse. To act strategically is to understand the proper moment for intervention, the precise manner in which influence can be exerted, and the subtle ways in which behavior can be shaped without direct confrontation. By withholding immediate reaction, one preserves energy, cultivates patience, and creates space for judgment unclouded by the temporary ebbs and flows of emotion. It is in this space that insight arises, and in insight lies the power to act with certainty where others act from confusion and compulsion. Moreover, strategic detachment allows one to navigate the unpredictable behavior of others with a rare sophistication. Most people are easily provoked, reacting in predictable ways to stimuli, unaware of the patterns that govern their own choices. By observing without immediate engagement, one discerns the hidden motives and unspoken fears that guide conduct. One learns to distinguish between appearance and reality, to see beyond the masks that individuals wear in the theater of social interaction. In this discernment, the detached mind becomes a silent architect, subtly guiding outcomes without ever appearing to do so. The power to influence, then, is derived not from overt coercion but from the quiet command of perception, the understanding that those who act without awareness are more easily led than those who act with deliberation. Life, in its complexity, offers constant tests of this skill. Events seldom follow the designs of human expectation. Circumstance interposes its will upon our plans, and the unexpected emerges from every corner. The individual who has cultivated strategic detachment approaches such events with composure, understanding that immediate reaction often amplifies disorder while measured response converts opportunity from chaos. By maintaining distance from the emotional turbulence of each moment, one perceives patterns and relations invisible to the impulsive mind. In this perception lies control, for to understand the flow of events is to direct one's actions in alignment with the currents rather than against them. The cultivation of detachment also serves as a shield against the seductions of vanity and recognition. Most are enslaved by the opinions of others, seeking approval or fearing disapproval, letting social pressures dictate thought and behavior. By detaching strategically from these external validations, the mind becomes free to act according to reasoned insight, guided not by the whims of the crowd, but by an internal compass attuned to consequence and principle. In this state, the detached individual gains a quiet authority, commanding respect not through force but through presence, clarity, and the subtle demonstration of mastery over self and circumstance. Human beings present themselves as rational actors, yet beneath the surface of polite speech and deliberate gestures lies a hidden will, a network of desires, fears, and compulsions that govern behavior far more than conscious intention. Most people are unaware of these undercurrents, believing that what they say, do, or show is an accurate reflection of their inner motives. But the reality is far more complex. The conscious mind is merely a facade, a carefully curated expression that masks the labyrinth of drives beneath. To understand the hidden will of others is to perceive what they conceal from themselves, to recognize the forces that compel them before they even recognize them, and to navigate interactions with clarity that appears almost prescient. At the core of human behavior lies a desire for validation, security, and power. Even acts that appear selfless or generous are often influenced by these primal currents, hidden beneath layers of social etiquette and intellectual rationalization. The skilled observer notes these subtle indications: the twitch of a hand, the hesitation in speech, the fleeting expression of discomfort or excitement. These small, almost imperceptible signals betray the motive behind action, revealing the true drivers that the individual prefer remain hidden. It is in the careful study of these signs that one discovers the possibility of influence. By understanding what others truly desire or fear, one can anticipate choices, predict responses, and guide outcomes with precision that seems unnatural to those untrained in the art of observation. The hidden will of others also manifests in the gaps between words and deeds, in the tension between expressed intention and actual behavior. People often act to preserve appearances, to satisfy social expectations, or to protect fragile egos. They may speak of honor, loyalty, or principle while their decisions are governed by insecurity, envy, or unacknowledged ambition. By cultivating an awareness of this dissonance, one learns to read beyond the surface, to discern the invisible architecture of motive that shapes every interaction. In doing so, one does not merely react to behavior. One engages with the underlying pattern, anticipating its unfolding and intervening where subtle guidance will yield maximum effect. Influence, in this sense, is not a matter of coercion or argument, but of alignment, positioning oneself in accordance with the hidden currents will so that outcomes naturally follow the intended course. Another essential element in understanding the hidden will of others is a recognition of universal human vulnerabilities. Fear, desire, pride, and the longing for recognition are constant across the spectrum of personality and circumstance. While the particulars of expression differ from individual to individual, these fundamental drives remain consistent. By observing how they manifest in action, one can predict behavior, detect deception, and identify opportunities to guide perception and choice. This is not manipulation for its own sake, but the exercise of insight, the comprehension of the unseen forces that govern the actions of those around us and the conscious engagement with them to achieve deliberate ends. The hidden will also reveals itself in the avoidance of discomfort, the pursuit of advantage, and the subtleties of social maneuvering. People rarely act in isolation. They are influenced by the expectations, desires, and fears of others. Social dynamics create pressures that shape action as much as individual inclination does. Those who perceive these pressures, who understand the silent negotiations occurring beneath the surface, are able to anticipate moves, mitigate threats, and harness cooperation without confrontation. One learns to recognize when compliance is feigned, when consent is coerced by circumstance, and when resistance is merely performative, allowing one to act strategically in alignment with the true state of affairs rather than the illusion presented. By mastering the perception of hidden motives, the mind gains both defensive and offensive advantages. One is able to avoid manipulation, to resist subtle pressures, and to protect the integrity of personal intention. At the same time, one is able to guide interactions subtly, to plant suggestions that align with unspoken desires, and to cultivate cooperation without force. The comprehension of the hidden will transform social engagement into a delicate art, where action flows with the natural currents of desire and aversion, and where influence is exercised invisibly, yet powerfully, without the awareness of those whose behavior is guided. The human mind is perpetually besieged. From the moment we awaken, it is assailed by countless distractions, fleeting impulses, and the incessant demands of an unpredictable world. Without deliberate cultivation, the psyche becomes a battlefield where every stray thought and emotion wields influence over decisions and perception. The art of mental fortification is a conscious effort to construct an inner citadel, a sanctuary of reason and resilience where one may resist the seductions of impulse, the manipulations of others, and the corrosive effect of external chaos. It is in this fortified space that clarity arises, judgment is sharpened, and one achieves a capacity to act with precision where others falter under the weight of distraction and disorder. To fortify the mind is not to renounce feeling or to reject engagement with life. Rather, it is to cultivate discernment, to separate what is essential from what is trivial, and to master the mechanisms that govern thought. The mind is like a city under siege. Without walls, towers, and vigilant watch, it is vulnerable to the encroachments of every passing thought and influence. By constructing mental defenses, one learns to resist the pull of immediate gratification, to question automatic reactions, and to observe the workings of the self with impartiality. Each impulse, each desire, becomes an object of scrutiny, and in that scrutiny lies the power to act deliberately rather than reflexively. Discipline is a cornerstone of mental fortification. The untrained mind is easily swayed by novelty, flattery, and fear, responding to the faintest provocation with disproportionate intensity. By cultivating habits of reflection and self-inquiry, one strengthens a capacity to withstand such pressures. Meditation upon thought and emotion, the practice of stepping back before action, and the conscious regulation of attention serve as tools of fortification. These practices are not passive. They are active resistance against the tyranny of the unexamined mind, allowing one to distinguish between fleeting impulses and enduring truths, between transient passions and the long-term dictates of reason. Equally important is the understanding of cognitive vulnerability. Human perception is inherently biased, filtered through the lens of prior experiences, cultural conditioning, and unconscious desires. Without awareness of these distortions, one is perpetually misled, reacting not to reality itself but to the shadows cast by the mind's own machinery. Fortification requires a deliberate cultivation of objectivity, the recognition of bias, and the capacity to examine thoughts as though they belong to another. By treating the mind as both the subject and the observer of its own processes, one gains mastery over perception, reducing the likelihood of error and enhancing the clarity with which action is chosen. The fortification of the mind also demands resilience in the face of adversity. Life, in its unpredictability, will present obstacles beyond anticipation. Betrayal, disappointment, and failure are constants of the human condition. The fortified mind does not collapse under these pressures but absorbs and analyzes them, drawing insight from challenge rather than succumbing to despair. In this way, mental fortification becomes both defensive and generative. It shields against the corrosive effects of misfortune while providing the stability from which deliberate, creative action may emerge. Strength of mind is thus not a static state but a dynamic process, a continuous engagement with the forces that threaten clarity, focus, and purpose. A crucial element of fortification lies in the management of influence. The mind, unguarded, is perpetually susceptible to the hidden wills of others, to the manipulations of circumstance, and to the subtle coercions of social expectation. By strengthening the interior citadel, one cultivates immunity to these pressures, enabling decisions to be guided not by the demands of the external world but by considered judgment. One develops the ability to act independently, to resist social compulsion, and to align action with long-term purpose rather than immediate impulse. In this state, Mental fortification becomes a foundation of power, a quiet, unseen mastery that allows one to act decisively, strategically, and with unerring precision, while those whose minds remain untrained drift helplessly in the currents of circumstance and desire.